got the bedding and I stretch before I wash my face. To survive, about to take him to another place. And she said I'm Superman to a lowest lane. Side again, no wise enough, then ain't to clear the way. You gotta go, but to achieve it, you gon' need some faith.
Welcome back to another edition of Off the Bench. It's your boys, Jorge and Roland. Thanks to everyone that came out for the IG Live for the first quarter of the Grizzlies Pelicans. Thank you for joining me on the NBA Watch Along. Roland also stopped by for a bit to give his thoughts. And you know what? If you guys enjoy that kind of content, we'll do more of that. We want to be more involved with you guys, the listeners. So let us know, either in comments on YouTube or on Instagram or Facebook. If you want to see more of that kind of content, please let us know. And as always, this podcast is brought to you by Diplomacy Clothing. Negotiate with style. It's Pay Me season. They're coming up with a brand new Pay Me merch roll. I can't wait to order mine.
I'm waiting. I'm ready, man.
Just DM at Diplomacy Clothing to place your order. No matter where you are in the world, they will make sure your Diplomacy Clothing shirts make it to you. Roll NASCAR has some breaking news that you wanted to address with the fans. What is this news?
Well, George, I am here to tell any of my NASCAR listeners here that Brad Keselowski will be staying in the two-deuce car, the iconic Rusty Wallace car, and remaining with Team Penske throughout. They didn't give, I believe, actual details on how long or how. It's an extension to his current deal. He was actually set to hit the market this offseason, and there was a lot of speculation. Will he go to Hendrick? Will he, there was a lot of coming. I know you don't know too much, George, but coming through his ranks, he was always a Hendrick guy. Rick Hendrick always wanted to keep him. He was in their system. He was under Doug Jr. So there was this big hype behind him. But when you have such a talented team that Team Hendrick had, there was just no room for him. So they ended up getting his opportunity over in Team Penske to drive the two car, once Rusty left. And they cycled off a couple of drivers in between. But Brad Keselowski, a former champion in our Cup Series, I'm happy to see him stay. Because here's the thing, George. Excuse me. NASCAR as a whole, they have a lot of. If you watch NASCAR, certain cars make you think of certain race car traffic. Even for a casual watcher like yourself, if you've seen a blacked out number 3 car, you would immediately think that you wouldn't think anything else. Or if you see a 24 straight Chevrolet, you think Jeff Gordon. Or if you see a 6 Vaseline Martin, certain cars that stick with certain people. And I hate, in basketball, it's kind of like normal. You'll see a great player in another jersey. You can almost become numb to it. In NASCAR, that's rare. It's a rare occasion. It doesn't happen too often. The most shocking one would probably being Dale Jr. leaving his own family company to join Rick Hendrick. Was probably one of the bigger shockers ever, outside of Kevin Harvick leaving RCR. That's, get off topic a little bit. In the current news with Brad Keselowski staying, I think it's great because they're coming off a season where it was a lot of up and downs. There was I feel like the team needed the security board. I feel like they needed to know that, hey, we got Brad for long term. This ain't just one shot in the dark. Let's send him out on a bang because we don't know if we're going to have jobs next year if Brad Keselowski's not here. And 2, we don't know who the driver's going to be if Brad's not here. Right. Typically when you see a big star like Brad, those teams, they replace them with younger drivers. And Brad being, he's not an old guy by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not young either. He's about mid of the pack. So in NASCAR, you could probably race it about 50. It could probably still be competitive as long as you got a good enough ride, But he's a remarkable guy, very personal. He's I know we talked yesterday about Chris Paul. He's almost like Chris Paul of the NASCAR lot, if that makes sense. Of the NASCAR trailers. He comes out, he says a lot of things, and a lot of people may not like the guy, but a lot of guys respect him. You respect Brad Keselowski. He's arguably, easily, I believe, George, he's probably a top 15, top 20 driver of all time. He's a great driver. He only had one championship to show for that, but he has. If you look at his resume, it speaks for itself. But I did want to come on here and tell everybody, hey, he's staying. He's not leaving. Mm-hmm. All these, is he going to Hendrick? Is he going RCR? Is he, where's he going? We can put that to bed. He's staying in that blue Ford, and more power to the guy.
Well, many NASCAR fans are relieved that the rumors are now over and done with. Well, we know where he's staying at. And congratulations to him, like as you mentioned, mm-hmm. most of these places just want to go younger, and for him to get locked up for another deal, it's great for him and great for NASCAR.
And the reason why people, most of these companies want to do that is because sponsorship is everything in NASCAR right now. If you can provide your own ride, hey, we'll give you a chance. Like Paul Menard, nobody can mistake Paul Menard for a great race car driver. But his father and his uncle and his grandfathers, they have the Menard business. So he's always going to have funding. And that's why he gets opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And having finished like top 10 in points ever. Not like this guy's some guy we're talking about here who's winning at least 3 races a year. No, but he's consistently running top quality. Well, not even top quality, but mid of the pack quality rides. And you got people like Chris Buescher, who is talented, and we all see the talent, struggling to get those rides because he doesn't have what would be the proper funding. The team would have to provide him with the funding. And, I feel like that kind of takes away from the NASCAR roots because it was always about who's the best driver. Right. It wasn't about funding. It wasn't about sponsorship. But Jeff Gordon put Jimmy Johnson in that 48 car. And not because he's like, oh, this guy's going to make us a lot of funding. He was like, no, Rick, this guy can drive. Right. And he's going to be a future champion in this Cup Series. And sure enough, we're talking about Jimmy Johnson, arguably the greatest driver ever. So I mean, I feel like this, just piggyback off what I said earlier, I feel like this gives the fans of NASCAR security that, hey, Brad Keselowski is not moving cars. The iconic 2 Deuce will still be his. And now I think he has the opportunity, if he hasn't already. I mean, if you're a NASCAR watcher, let me know how you feel. But he might, I think now this gives him a chance to surpass Rusty Wallace as the first person you think of when you see that blue tooth. Like, everyone see that blue light, you're like, oh, Rusty Wallace. Yeah. But now there's probably more and more people, especially in the new age of, NASCAR and social media. A lot of people are going to become real, known on Brad Keselowski. He had a chance this year, George, to win the championship. It's not far-fetched to believe that he might win the championship. I believe if the season was to end today, he'll be in the top 5. So, and that's all we need. Yeah. I'm telling you, he's a good driver.
Well, damn. That's something to look out for, I guess, once the Cup Series comes around, that Brad Keselowski could be your next champ.
He's coming off a win, too.
He's coming off a win. He's building momentum. But in more greater news, because, last episode, it was a lot of sad news, MLB with the COVID outbreak, Cespedes opting out and no showing.
Yeah, we got real sad.
We got great news. In fact, I believe. Can you smell that roll? Can you smell that? Can you smell what the Rock?
For the millions.
For the millions and millions of XFL fans. Because the XFL is saved, no longer in bankruptcy because of Vince McMahon's decisions. The Rock and a group, I don't have my phone on me, but The Rock and a group of investors pay a measly $15 million.
$15 million.
To buy the XFL. And when I saw this, I immediately thought, this is Baller, the HBO show Baller.
I swear
to a T. He's living this IRL. Because he just bought a whole league. And I think the last season of Ballers was where The Rock ended up being an owner of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, that's a great season. That was a great season. Great way to end the show that season. And I'm like looking at these news, and I'm like, wow, The Rock really did this in real life. Like, he brought the show into reality. and now he's a part owner of the XFL. And Oliver Luck, he can, I'm assuming, keep his job. I'm assuming everyone's jobs is now safe. Everyone who got let go is going to be brought back in. I foresee zero changes to the way they were running things, outside of one thing. I think, if not this, obviously you can't do anything this year with COVID and everything.
Yeah.
But next year, once COVID hopefully starts slowing down and we either find a vaccine or
we get a little bit back to a normal routine.
We will get back to normalcy. I think The Rock we're going to start seeing The Rock a lot more on ESPN, on Fox. He may even make it on Undisputed. And we're going to see a negotiation for a proper TV deal. Because as we mentioned before, when the XFL was initially canceled and thrown into bankruptcy mode, filed for Chapter 11, the big issue was that the first season of the XFL was given away for free to ESPN, CBS, Fox, NBC, and they were basically saying, here's our product, just show it on TV. And after this first season is done, we'll negotiate a TV deal. And that's why we saw so many XFL games everywhere, because they're like, well, we have something to air when in the springtime and there's nothing going on, when LeBron still doesn't care about basketball right now because it's not April or May or June. So we have something to throw out there after the Super Bowl. And now I think what's going to be key is the TV deals. Who is going to pay up an X amount of dollars to show the XFL? Because the XFL, they were doing pretty well in the TV ratings. A lot of people were tuning in to watch.
Even on YouTube.
It was on even on YouTube. They were looking at highlights. So they had grown a following before COVID forced the closure. And like for me, I was a huge St. Louis Battlehawks fan. You could see me rooting for the Battlehawks every day because St. Louis, they needed that city. And now they still have the league. It's going to continue, hopefully, as a spring football team, a league, and does not interfere with the NFL because, let's be frank, no startup league is going to compete with the NFL in the fall.
Not at all.
But if they maintain themselves as a spring league, The Rock is going to be the owner that's going to be out there in public promoting the business, promoting the new league.
I can see him being like a Dana White to the XFL.
Yes.
Where he may not even necessarily take care of all the actual inside the office paperwork, but like he'll be out there, like you say, on ESPN, on Fox, breaking those in any major company is going to want to do business that has The Rock's name on it. Dwayne Johnson. He brings such a huge following on his own right that he's gonna bring in fans that, as you said, George, it was pulling in decent views before. Now that you stamp Rock's name on it, it's gonna bring in that much more. God forbid they can get this thing on like Fox or something.
And that's the thing that I'm wondering now, because a lot of these you're seeing like places like CBS, NBC, they're starting to throw out their streaming service. So I'm wondering how much of a factor or how much of a fight places like YouTube TV, Hulu TV are going to be factored in, Amazon Prime. How much if they're going to compete along with the Foxes and NBCs for the TV rights to the XFL. Because the XFL could say, oh, well, we don't like this offer from Fox. NBC's lowballing us. CBS isn't giving us a real offer. Hulu TV is giving us like a 3-year deal that we like. We can go to Hulu TV, and now we're on a streaming service. So now
I'll just piggyback off what you just said. Yeah, that's exactly like if one of these major like ESPN, CBS, NBC, Fox, they fumble the bag too much. They're not trying to offer a proper deal to them. They could take this into, like you said, YouTube TV, Hulu Sports. Hulu Sports is everyday growing, George. You're seeing this now on mainstream TV commercials. Like Hulu TV is actually a for real thing. And obviously they'll still pull the views that they were pulling on YouTube with the highlights and stuff. Like, I feel like it's going to be too good of an opportunity for Fox to pass up because Although, I mean, I don't know if I can speak for you, George, but I enjoy the work Fox puts out more on like with the Fox journalists and the Fox analysts and their debate shows and talk shows. I enjoy their stuff a little bit more than I enjoy ESPN. But make no mistake, ESPN is still still the bigger brand.
And I think Fox is going to be the TV deal, the TV company that's going to come out with the best offer. And I think ultimately they're going. My projection is that Fox is going to ultimately air XFL games exclusively. If for one reason and one reason only, I can see them doing the game of the week, America's game of the week that they do for the NFL. Doing just one game for the XFL, and every other game is on FS1. Because if anyone who watches Undisputed, Speak for Yourself, we know, like frequent Fox viewers, we know that Fox Sports 1 is always lacking in content. And that Fox is always open and willing to give anyone a show. Anyone, whatever, even if you're a fired ESPN person like Colin Cowherd or anyone else, and they're willing to give anyone a platform on Fox Sports 1. So I could really see them having a premier game between two of the best XFL teams that week on that Saturday or Sunday, and then every other games are on Fox Sports 1.
And George, here's the thing: like this will open up more jobs for FS1. Like we can get people like, just trying to think off the top of it, like trying to think like a Tyrod Taylor, Marcus Russell, kind of people. I'm not saying no people per se, but people who were in the league just couldn't make it. Who just couldn't make it. Then you grab those people, like a Greg Malcolm.
And you remember in the XFL at the first couple of weeks, Cardale Jones was looking like Cardale Jones of the.
But here's the thing, George. I wasn't but I was talking like more on the spectrum of like people to actually like broadcast the thing. We have people who just didn't make it in the NFL. Commentating. Talking about the XFL. And obviously, I think that'd be a big selling point if you get a couple of people that can do this. Because it'll be like obviously the great names. Like I mentioned AJ. Okay, we can talk about AJ McCarron. It's like AJ McCarron to get like on a talk show host.
Actually, now that you mentioned commentary teams, now that we're discussing it, at the XFL, if they go to Fox could make the XFL huge.
And that's what I'm saying, George.
Doing one thing and one thing only: replicating the Monday Night Football booth on Fox.
Yeah,
and I think bringing guys like a Pat McAfee, AJ Hawk, who have their own radio show, bringing those guys in for
bringing personalities,
bringing well-known personalities, and all you need is a Mike Tirico type character or an Al Michaels, whoever.
Yeah. And I wouldn't even bother trying to bring in like an NFL guy to do this because here's the thing. Here's what the XFL's selling point got to be. Like we're obviously watching the XFL because honestly, let's be 100% real. I love the XFL as much as the next person, but these are people who couldn't make it in the NFL. So I'm listening to Ryan Mallett. Let's go with Ryan Mallett from Microsoft. If I'm listening to him speak, and we know, great college person couldn't make it into the NFL. Like he's gonna break this down a lot better than somebody who played in the NFL and is just comparing football. Because he knows what these guys are going through. These are guys who he probably played against in college. Like out here working, trying, putting on and make no mistake, just because he got put up in the NFL, don't mean these guys can't play football. We will see great games, great plays, just like we see every day on Sunday, like regularly. And like you said, George, if they can keep it in spring, all the more better. Because then you don't have to worry about clashing with the NFL. The NFL's got their own thing. The XFL's got its own thing. And The Rock is just the man make sure that he has a proper plan in place. And I don't think
actually now that I'm thinking about it, now that I'm thinking harder about it, The Rock actually got Kerry Champion to be the host of his Titan games on NBC. Kerry Champion is not with ESPN because she left to make this show. Now I could really see Fox buying the TV exclusive TV deals for the XFL.
Yeah.
Remember, it's only eight teams in this league. You don't have to worry about going to CBS, Fox, ESPN until your league grows to the size of the NFL. So you can be on one network exclusively and have that one network air your shows, your games. I mean,
all the local teams, all the local games.
Let me offer you this. So we have Pat McAfee, who is huge in the sports world right now with his radio show, with his infamous story of Troy Polamalu closing the C gap and disrupting his one chance at scoring a touchdown. We've all seen that video go viral. He's been with Barstool, and now he has his own show with AJ Hawk. Helped bring AJ Hawk in too. The both of them have great chemistry, but you can't just have straight sports people. You need to have that one person who covers the sport as a journalist.
Covers exactly.
Be historic, Fox. Get the first female lead anchor for a Monday Night Football-esque booth, and bring in Kerry Champion. Bring in Kerry Champion as your lead analyst, and and have two former NFL players, and have Kerry Champion be the lead commentator for the XFL. That would be one. You're automatically bringing viewers in, whether they hate Kerry Champion or they love Kerry Champion. You're bringing viewers in. Because the side who love Kerry Champion as a journalist, they're going to come in and support her. The ones who hate her and want to see how much she messes up, they're going in just to watch her possibly mess up. But you're bringing viewers in.
And here's the thing, George. If they keep it on FS1, like we're talking about, if they keep it on Fox, even though I talked about, obviously you can build up other personalities, you still got Speak for Yourself, the Colin Cowherd show.
You can even have Marcellus Wiley come into the booth.
And here's the thing, George. Who wouldn't want to see Pat McAfee call games? Who wouldn't want to see that?
He called a great game when Detroit and Green Bay played last year.
The kid, for what? Here's this. I might anger some people when I say this. For what Gruden was for Monday Night Football for all those years, Pat McAfee could probably be better. And let's be real.
And he's been rumored to fill in that Monday Night Football booth for years now. For years.
And if he says screw that, screw that. I want to be part of something new, something fresh, and what a jolt in the arm would that be? That would probably take the XFL for what we would assume to be a small company and make them big. Fox, and we know Fox is willing to take risks, but they took the WWE risk. Yeah. There was no guarantee that Fox, when they took over SmackDown and say, hey, we're going to air SmackDown, we're going to promote SmackDown, it's going to be part of every Tuesday rewind. It's going to be on. And I got that wrong. Are they still on
Friday nights now?
Yeah, I said okay.
But they moved them when they get on nationally covered, nationally viewed Fox, like Channel 5 on Optimum. Like everyone has Fox if you have cable, and so you're gonna watch SmackDown. And we can discuss on another day what WWE is doing with SmackDown on Fox, but it's still eyeballs. And the thing with Pat McAfee is that he's bringing younger viewers because he's bringing the mid to the 25 to 35 age range of listeners, sports lovers, and even wrestling listeners that are coming in that know Pat McAfee. He's been on the WWE pre-shows. He's called NFL games. He's got a wide net of a fan base that he can bring in to the XFL. And one other thing that's going to make the XFL great, and it's going to look amazing, guarantee you. Get out of the NFL stadiums. And I don't mean that
for sure.
I don't mean that in a way where you don't want to associate with the NFL games or the NFL stadium or NFL in general, but don't play in those NFL stadiums. If you want, maybe down the line you can book an NFL stadium for the championship game, But for now, what I really liked about the XFL was was that's gonna show up on the video. So was what I really liked is the fact that the XFL played in the MLS stadiums. That the capacity was like 10,000.
Okay.
So
Okay.
playing these smaller stadiums, so when people come in and actually go to the games, it doesn't look like a half-empty MetLife.
Half-empty stadium. Okay.
It actually looks like, oh wow, this is near capacity of what the games are.
And that would probably, like you just said, George, that would probably take it to, again, like the next level. We have, like, I mean, obviously you can't help who follows your team, who can't follow your team. You know, if you don't have to follow me, you don't have to follow me. But, like, if you tune in to, like, let's say the Los Angeles Chargers, a lot of people joke because that's more of, like, an away game for the Chargers, even when they're home, because they have no fans, really, in the area. And that's part of the problem with when you have California teams. There's so many teams in California, you know, majority of the year split Raiders, you split 49ers. And the Chargers is just that forgotten team that just doesn't have huge fan base. If they take your idea, George, and they go to like smaller arenas, like the MLS stadiums,
and a couple of teams did. A couple of teams actually did go into playing the DC United.
It's the DC United.
They played in
exactly.
In the stadium.
And it's a lot easier to fill those arenas out than obviously the Washington Redskins. Well, not even Redskins, but the Washington football team. You know, it's a lot easier to fill out the DC United teams than obviously the Washington Stadium.
Yeah. But yes, the smaller stadiums would be a lot better. When I mentioned the DC United stadiums when they play in the MLS field, it's smaller, but because it's smaller, the cameras aren't going to just film from the sky into the stadium to show how small it is. But from looking at it from the television, you could see, wow, like this. There's a lot of people at this game. Maybe I should go to an XFL game and see why the whole stadium is packed. Even when Cardale Jones was throwing like 5 picks by the end of the season, it was still like, wow, maybe I should check out Cardale Jones. And his performance to start the season, where he was going like 12 touchdowns, no interceptions, that I think helped the XFL tremendously, especially when you have Joel Klatt on commentary going back to Cardale Jones' college career. Because Joel Klatt, he's a college insider. He's the guy that's giving you his mock drafts before at the same time as ESPN's mock drafts. He's Fox's Mel Kiper's and Todd McShay. That's Fox's mock draft guy and college guy. So whenever it's college football season, they always call Joel Klatt and say, okay, Josh Rosen played he threw X amount of yards, threw X amount of touchdowns against Arizona State. Like, how does this impact his draft profile? And Joel Klatt will give you his analysis. The same thing in XFL. Oh, Cardale Jones played this kind of style at Ohio State. It didn't translate in the NFL, but this is what the XFL coaches are doing for him. That kind of stuff was really good. I think that's what really helped bring in the high ratings for the XFL in the beginning. And of course, Cardale Jones started to become the Bills and Chargers Cardale Jones that we all remember him now recently.
Oh, stop it!
But he's still Cardale Jones. He was the guy that made Devin Smith a huge receiver and made him a second round pick with the deep bombs they threw in Ohio State.
Yeah.
But I think we go back to that. Just those two things, like the proper TV format of bringing in different commentators to like Hari Champion, Pat McAfee, Joel Klatt, just different NFL players that faded out and are going through what these XFL players are going through, plus these smaller stadiums that make it feel like a big deal. I think The Rock is going to lead the way with the other investors at these negotiations. He's not going to be out of these negotiations at all. Guarantee, even if he owns 10% of the XFL, he's going to be at the negotiating table to say, okay,
for
guys,
sure.
like this, like a 2-year deal isn't good enough for the XFL. We need a 5-year commitment from these networks.
Yeah, he's going to apply the pressure. That's for sure. He's going to apply the pressure to these networks to force their hand to be like, hey, we can't have we can't have a ticking time bomb on this. You gotta let us work. And the only way a network can show that they're invested in your product is to give you a long enough deal.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think they're gonna be like, hey, Rock's the kind of guy that, he has so much credibility to his name that when he goes to these networks with these deals and he's not just talking out of his butt. He gonna come formal, correct, and exactly how he needs to get it across, and make sure that they get the proper deal done.
And the best thing is that everyone, obviously with The Rock, they know him as a wrestler first, and they'd be like, oh, Vince McMahon. The Rock has done so much over the past 20 years to disassociate himself from the WWE, where even when it's WrestleMania season, he forces Vince McMahon and WWE to pay him a premium on insurance, on injury, everything, only because he knows Hollywood and even certain production studios, like around WrestleMania season, when obviously the WWE want The Rock there to bring in the viewers and bring in the buy rates for the pay-per-view. Even they're like, unless you're paying us a premium to make sure The Rock isn't injured, you're going to 100% guarantee us that The Rock is not going to he's not going to take any bumps, he's not going to get hurt, nothing's going to happen to him, we will give you The Rock. But unless that happens, we're not giving The Rock to anyone. He can do a webcam, he can do an appearance, but he's not stepping in your ring to do anything. And that's happened. That's a huge reason why we barely see The Rock in the first place, because he's always doing these movies and he's prioritizing the movies over his appearance with WWE, where guys like John Cena, they would make one movie and then go back to WWE as a part-timer, work for like 6 months, and then he suffered a busted triceps. He has to delay his production for his movie.
Yeah.
So maybe a guy like John Cena, who's also a pretty good actor, mind you.
Yeah.
John Cena still, if he's invited to WWE, he'll go.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's always there.
He'll be like, all right, well, you don't have to pay my production company like a premium or anything. I'll go because I love Vince and I love the WWE. But The Rock's like, nuh-uh. You're gonna have to pay my production company X amount of dollars to make sure I'm not hurt. Because if I get hurt, I can't be in this movie, and then they're gonna replace me.
Basically, yeah. You basically gotta make it worth The Rock's while to do anything.
Yeah. And The Rock, he had a rocky beginning ironically, he had a rocky beginning to his acting career, but now he managed to get his own spin-off for the Fast and Furious franchise.
Oh, you've seen that, right?
So he is top dollar right now. He will not mess around. If he's able to get a Fast and Furious franchise, a franchise I think is already way past its popularity. If he's able to get a spin-off franchise from Fast and Furious, make it into his own, then he can get a deal for the XFL.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but he's the guy for the job. If there's anybody here who, I mean, we watched Vince and his goons make the XFL semi-watchable. You was it was gaining popularity. Imagine what The Rock's going to bring.
And The Rock, and I wouldn't be surprised if The Rock even starts putting some of his own money into the XFL.
Oh, I believe he will. I'm pretty sure.
He's got a ludicrous amount of money, probably set aside that he has for his other personal stuff. He's got movies out the wazoo coming. He's revived Jumanji, so he can definitely bring in a portion of that money, put it into the XFL that Vince McMahon refused to do. And he can. This league can survive.
Oh, I think this league, with the purchase of like Dwayne, making sure that he gets he's gonna get his fingerprints on the job, and I trust anyone that he brings in is gonna be on the same boat he's gonna be in. I don't think they're going to rush this either, George. I don't think
No.
you should expect to see next spring the XFL just randomly back playing football.
No, I'm just saying, next spring, just because it's the closest.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm there with you. But, you know what I'm saying? I don't think they'll rush it. Like there's still a possibility they could probably play. You never know. But like obviously he's gonna do what's right for the XFL, and I don't think he's gonna be. Here's the thing. Since the news just came back out today about him purchasing, I expect within 2 months to find out that The Rock has landed a TV deal with, like we said, Fox, NBC, ESPN, or Hulu Sports.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we get to that part, then we'll start getting into the details, about when should we expect them to come back in, what format are they going to come back in, how are they going to, with all COVID going on, how they're going to go about doing business. We're still get to see how the NFL is going to handle this.
Yeah.
Which is another tricky thing, because much like baseball, it's going to be like quarantining while playing football with other 12 other men on the field.
And that's excluding the whole 53-man rosters, the dozens of coaches on that team, because it's not just a head coach, assistant coach. There's a receivers coach, there's a fitness coach, there's a running back coach, there's a coach for literally every position on the field.
A sideline coach.
There's a coach for everything, and the NFL have not, outside of what our next topic is going to be, have not decided on. They have not announced any plans on how they're going to reduce the spread of COVID.
Nope.
And one last thing about the XFL that I was going to say, I had it on the tip of my tongue as you were mentioning it. This is embarrassing. Shoot. Well, you know what? Never mind. But anyway,
check into his social media, guys.
Go into the social media. I'll take my 2 cents there. Oh no, that's what I was going to say. The salary, the XFL when they came out with the relaunch, said that the quarterbacks are going to get a higher salary than the position players. Now that the XFL has new owners, what is is that one of the changes that are going to come in? Because I doubt that with these new owners, with Oliver Luck obviously having more of a say. Not saying that he didn't have enough of a say. But I think he's gonna have more of a trust with the new owners and The Rock. That are we gonna see a change in salary where the quarterback isn't just the guy making close to NFL salary, where your top wide receiver can make like the veterans minimum at the NFL?
Will our offense change? Yeah, will the offensive linemen be paid account?
Because the one controversial aspect of the XFL from the previous year, from the first year of relaunch, was that the quarterbacks were getting paid stupid amounts of money.
Everybody else.
Position players were making entry level internship positions. They were making like 30, 40K. It's like, well, dude, you can just work in an office. You don't have to play for the XFL.
Yeah, you don't got to hurt yourself.
So that was the last thing. But going back to the NFL, now we're transitioning to our final topic of the day. The NFL hasn't really made a plan. They've discussed possibly putting a face mask or the face covering on the actual helmets, but they haven't really been. It seems to me they haven't been serious about their COVID situation, and they just put in a deadline for players to opt out of the 2020 season.
And Jordan, I love that. Honestly, let me be frank, I love it, because not even just for fantasy football purposes, where I need to know my player they wasted no time, George. Today was the first day back at summer camp. Mini camp. Training camp. Your players are in, and I think what it was there were some players, George. For whoever watching, you guys can look it up. There's a list of players. There was a good amount of people that maybe we won't know, but obviously the roster knows, and they didn't show up.
Yep.
And so the NFL said, "Hey, we're not going to have that. If you're going to opt out or you're iffy, you're 50-50, hey, don't show up."
Yep.
The football more so than any other sport, George, is a sport you can't go into it 50-50. You can't go into it half-assed because you will get hurt. Yep. It's a violent contact game. And a lot of people were like, "It's a contact sport. We shouldn't have this sport." But there's enough. If it's done right, George, there's ways to make sure and ensure that your players are safe, your coaches are safe, the referees are safe. And I've read things up to the point where they're requiring that every player has a face mask on. I mean, a visor. Every player has to have a visor. Whether you have a clear, dark, smoke, however you want to do it. But whether like we've seen designed visors before, where maybe you have that team logo on your visor and something like that. I've been reading stuff like that, where they gotta make sure they take the proper measurements,
and they really
to make sure and ensure that everybody is safe.
And the thing is that I don't know what CDC guideline the NFL could follow, because it's one thing with the NBA and NHL where you can buy out this area, or you can rent out this area like Disney World resorts, and just put everyone in these hotels. And everyone is isolated for about 2-3 weeks, and then they start the season. You test daily. The testing daily thing is the only thing I can see the NFL really adopting. But then again, you have to test them daily while you're practicing. You have to test them daily at your practice facility. Then you have to test them daily when you arrive at the opponent's locker room. You have to make sure the locker rooms are all 100% satisfied. You have to test them the day before the game. You have to test them the morning of the game. You have to test them after the game. There's so much testing that has to be done where it's like, okay, can the NFL... And automatically, I think, at some point, Roger Goodell is going to say there's going to be no fans. Because right now, as far as I know, the Jets and Giants both said there's going to be no fans at MetLife for this year. They're not allowing any fans coming in. Baltimore severely cut their fan attendance to, I think, 12,000, 14,000 at most. And they're going to be dispersed in social distancing measures. So I think every 2 seats, people are going to be sitting across, skipping every row. They're going to make sure everyone's 6 feet apart. Face masks are now becoming mandatory to go to these games. But I don't think it's going to last or so. That's why I say Roger Goodell might just come and say either no fans are going to be allowed at the stadium, which is going to suck, because I don't know if you can feed in that kind of crowd noise to an NFL stadium that you can with NBA, with NHL, soccer. That would justify no fans outside of, and this is just outside of the health crisis that's going on, the health risk, and just the protecting of the players, because we saw a lot of key players just come out and say, you know what, I forgot the player that opted out to be with his family, with his newborn.
Football or basketball?
Football. There was
Damian Williams, was it?
I think it was either Damian Williams, but he posted up a video on Instagram saying that how he's opting out, and it's because him and his wife have been trying to have a child, and he's not going to risk anything to not be with his child. And there's a lot of players like that, where it's like, I'm not going to risk playing a game just because I need the money. There are a lot of players like that want to be with their families and not go play football in front of empty fans for a prorated salary. And the NFL hasn't had really much of a response outside of this deadline date, which is great, not only for us fantasy owners, but for the NFL players who are 50-50. And Roger Goodell is basically saying, you know what, if you're feeling 50-50, just stay out of the league. Stay home. Stay home, because we need players that are 100% committed to coming, 100% committed to playing this year, and that aren't going to opt out and pull a Jonas Cespedes. And I think the Cespedes issue is what really pushed Roger Goodell to do this, because beforehand, I think Roger Goodell is going to give the players a lot of freedom to do what they want. But now looking at what Major League Baseball is doing and how the players are responding to all the freedom that they have, I think the NFL is now going to be more not insanely strict where they're going to put them in a bubble, but now they're going to be like, you know what? If you want to go to Magic City and get some wings, that's fine. Just know that you're not be able to come to the NFL and play the season.
No, or like I want to see. I would hate for the NFL to go the route of the MLB and they just rush everything back without taking the proper measurements and proper guidance to make sure everybody is safe and that we don't have an outbreak amongst our sports people. Because like the thing that sticks to me the most about baseball is the fact that it just seems like they didn't have any proper guidelines in place. Mm-hmm. Like they went as simple as just saying like, hey, show up. When you get on base, you gotta wear a mask. When you're in the dugout, split up, wear your mask. Like they're basically making it seem like they only counted for a little bit of stuff. They didn't count for traveling. They put that on the teams. They didn't really seem to account on testing. They put that on the team. I want Roger Cordell to be like, hey, we're testing much like the NBA is. We're testing it, if not every day, every other day. Yep. Because obviously there's days where we're just going through weekly training, and you're like the weekly. Hear me out, dude. The training throughout the week, I would like to see in a bubble format where you're with your team. You can't be with nobody else but your team. Mm-hmm. But then, okay, let's say that takes us to Friday. Saturday is usually either Friday or Saturday, walk through, traveling day. You get to where you need to get to. You check into wherever you check in, you can't leave. You're there. Once you check into where you have to be, you checked in, you're with your team. That's the only people you can be in contact. Then there's obviously game day where you have, I will hope that if I have great procedures in place to make sure that all their players and everyone on the field who could possibly come in contact with anybody is in safeguards. And then when you leave, here's the thing, George. When you're leaving, I think they should at least give them at least a day. I will give you a day with your family. Yeah. So that way, okay. But understand, before that work week starts again, you have to get tested. There has to be some testing. And
the thing that concerns me with the testing is that, okay, let's say Tyrann Mathieu gets tested for the Chiefs, and it's a week, and it's the week of they're playing the Buccaneers, right? Or let's say 2 weeks, a week or two before they play the Buccaneers. Huge game for the NFL. It's going to be on Sunday Night Football. It's going to be a primetime game. Tyrann Mathieu tests positive, and he's a huge player on that Chiefs defense. How long is the quarantine? How long? Because you can't. Because if the typical response time to get out of being positive for COVID is 2 weeks.
Yeah, then it has to be.
Then you're missing 2 weeks of crucial NFL playing time, and your body is no longer in that NFL mode. You're stuck at home, quarantined, and then you're expected to come back for a huge primetime game against an offense like the Buccaneers or just any team in the NFL, and you have to get yourself back within that NFL shape for that one week. So that's another big concern is that what happens when they get positive tests? Do they just stick them out for the 2 weeks? Because the NFL is such a short season. It's 18 games now.
Yeah, and that's a good question, George. That's one I didn't even ponder. If they do have a positive test, and like you say, like let's talk about like key pieces. Let's say Lamar Jackson test positive, and then like you look at it, say they're in the meat of their schedule too, like meat of the schedule. He tests positive. What's the quarantine like? I believe it will have to be at least 10 to 14 days. It would have to.
Has to be. But then again, it's like, okay, those 10 to 14 days could be the difference between the Baltimore Ravens being the number 1 seed
and out of the play
to 10-6 and being a wild card team.
Yeah.
So it's So it's like, what do you do schedule wise? Because you can't have week after week after week of games, but then you can't go too deep into the spring because now you're interfering with all the other spring sports. Now
Yeah.
you're expanding the NFL season too big, whereas these players aren't going to be quarantined for 2 weeks in their practice facility. Now you're asking them to spend too much time away from their families. But then if you have the regular season schedule as is, you're bringing the risk of them exposing their loved ones. And if they do get that one day where they see their loved one, what if Lamar Jackson gets a positive test and someone else on the Ravens is exposed to Lamar Jackson because he's probably the running back or he's the offensive lineman or he's the receiver that's in the huddle or whoever's in the huddle with Lamar Jackson, and they're
In the
going to
same
their
room.
family and
Yep.
they're exposing it to them. So with the NFL, it's vastly different than any other sport.
And that's what makes it challenging. And that's why I'm happy I'm not Roger Goodell, where I have to make these decisions on it. Because honestly, I'll have no clue, George. I'll be the first to admit I can criticize somebody easily.
Yeah.
To be the one to make these decisions is tough because you're not just impacting one person's life or two person's life or just the people in your league. You're impacting the people who they come in contact with.
Yep.
And it's a tricky thing, which is why I never fault anybody for opting out of the season. I know Odell just came in today talking about he's playing.
He's playing, but he said he's saying that there should not be an NFL season this year. He's already out there and said, I'm coming in to play, but we really shouldn't be playing this season.
I agree.
With no plan in place, no precautions in place outside of just the opt out. He's saying, and you know what? Even though we just had a fantasy draft rolling, I somewhat agree with OBJ. If there's no
I agree. I agree completely.
You don't want to be the Rob Manfred now. So that now it's Roger. Everyone already hates Roger Goodell with how he handled the Deflategate and
many of other things that he didn't. Yeah, and other things he didn't handle well.
And a number of things he didn't handle well. Colin Kaepernick, Ray Rice. The issues with the Patriots scandals, Greg Hardy, and it's just like, okay, Roger Goodell, he's aware of all the criticisms that are against him. He's aware of who's against him. He knows he can't be the Robert Manfred 2.0. He has to rise above and come up with some plan for the NFL. And if it comes middle of August, we're closing on September, just say we cancel the season because or something. Just come up with something that one puts your players' health as the top priority. Because if Patrick Mahomes gets COVID-19, he's not going to be there for a good part of the 2-3 weeks of the season, and you're already losing off on your best star player of the NFL. Tom Brady could get it. He's in Tampa Bay. He's here in Florida. He's 2 hours away from me. He's here in Florida. He could get it too. He could get exposed. Same thing with all these other teams. Drew Brees could get it. Taylor could get it.
Yeah.
Jared Goff, any one of these players could get it. But are you putting their health first, or are you putting the games and money first? And that's the thing that we're going to start looking at. The opt out is a great first step, but I think we're now in August. We already agreed we're not doing preseason games. But what are you doing to help stop the spread so that the rest of the NFL players don't get exposed?
I'm sorry. I feel like, George, that's something worth putting on Instagram. I would love to hear what our followers have to say. Question would be, if a player gets test positive for COVID, how long are they out, and how long should they be out? You as an NFL player, George, it don't take long before you're no longer in football shape. To get in football shape takes some time. And then if you're forced on the sideline for 2.5 weeks where you can't play, there's no physical contact, you can't even be close to your team. So you don't even know what's going on. God forbid you have to coach. or like you're implementing a new system, and you don't know any of the code words. That's only telling you.
And this is just the players. There's so many staff members that assist with the NFL teams. So you have to worry about them as well. The fitness coach, the trainers, from the medical staff to just the people tossing the football around. You have to worry about them as well. But that's going to be it for us. Y'all, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We'll catch you guys next time. Life is coming at us fast. A lot of us are reopening really soon. We're going back to work. Roll is back to work. I'll be back to work very soon. So right now the tentative date is Saturdays for new episodes, but we'll keep you updated. Our once a week episodes will be out. But for now, we're going to try to get as much content to you as possible. Thank you so much for following and subscribing. And we will catch you guys next time.